I assume that we're just looking for an NBA guy to replace you.
That's a very reasonable assumption.
And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It is Tuesday, October 12th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. We are brought to you by Jock Market. And we've got a legitimate MLB slate today. 3 playoff games. It's not just some random 2-gamer. We get 3, so we can actually talk about this as a full slate. Now, as you get in the door, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, you excited for this 3-game MLB slate? Didn't think we were going to get one of these today.
Yeah, it's nice that the game yesterday got postponed, so we got this one today. I've actually enjoyed having the postseason games because otherwise I would just be bored out of my mind right now between MLB regular season ending and NBA starting. Outside of NFL days, I would have basically nothing to do. So I actually am enjoying these slates.
Who are you cheering for in this playoffs? Do you have a preferred winner of the World Series? Obviously, your Baltimore Orioles finished just outside the postseason.
Yeah, they just missed, and that was really hard to stomach. But no, not really. It's kind of a weird one for me because I like most of the teams. I don't like the Red Sox. I don't particularly like Houston. But, I like Chicago. I like Milwaukee. I like Atlanta. I don't have an issue with the Dodgers or the Giants. So it's kind of a weird one where I don't really have a rooting interest right now. I think that eventually my rooting interest will be determined by whoever is facing Boston or Houston.
Fair enough. You basically said yours in like the opposite order. I would happily see Boston win for reasons that I don't totally understand. I'm team cheat, so go Houston. Yeah. That's for sure.
I will say I was kind of rooting for Boston to advance because I got the idea in my head like last week that I've never been to Fenway and I'd like to go for a playoff game, but I couldn't make it up there for game 3 or 4. So I'm still kind of kicking around the idea of like now they're in the ALCS, maybe I'll go up for a game, but I probably won't. So I don't know. It's kind of just, I wasn't that upset they advanced, but
I did see your tweet. I immediately went to look to see like how much tickets were and how I can make this work. And then I was like, oh yeah, you and I taking off at the exact same time to go to a baseball game is probably going to be perfect timing.
Well, I wouldn't take off. I would just get a hotel.
And oh yeah, you can see, I can't do those 2 things at the same time. If I'm not at my own desk, I can't do a show.
Yeah. No. And actually after I tweeted that, DraftKings offered me tickets to game 3. But I was just like, I can't get up there on Sunday because I was coming back from vacation on Saturday. I was like, that sounds really stressful to go to watch a baseball game that I actually don't care about.
Did we just get a lineup? Did I hear somebody say that?
Yeah. Oh shit! NHL starts today. I did not know that. I am about to make so much money now.
Yeah, NHL is back today. Are you going to properly play NHL?
Probably not. I don't pay enough. I just don't. Once NBA comes around, I don't have time to pay attention to NHL news.
That's fair.
And it's so much less accessible than NBA news. Like if I could just get like consistent pop-ups, like, oh, this player isn't playing, and then know what to do with it, I'd be more likely to play. But,
that's fair.
Yeah, but when it's just like, oh, I forgot amongst all my NBA late swaps to check, XYZ hockey stuff that I didn't even realize I needed to look for, it becomes a problem.
So you'll be playing hockey through Monday, and
yeah,
that'll do it. Okay.
Yeah, until
morale just
break, when I will gladly take down the biggest hockey tournament.
B Morale in chat said, asking, do I do, or I assume do either of us do NBA preseason DFS? That answer would be no.
I have in the past. I didn't this year because I was on vacation and just wasn't going to spend time getting into it. But I have played it in the past. I think there's definitely an edge if you're going to take the time to grind it.
Yeah. And for content purposes, no.
No. I've done that in the past too, and it's one of my least favorite things to do. But playing is pretty fun.
Yeah, it's not for me. I don't want to guess on whether or not someone's actually going to show up and play that particular day. Either way, this is not. I was starting to get
the itch just going through my Twitter timeline like yesterday and stuff. I'm seeing like NBA beat reporters. DJ Augustine going to play less today. The young guys are going to play more. Augustine will play more next game, and I was sitting there like, oh man, I'm ready for NBA.
I have already run my projections for the opening slate on Tuesday.
As usual, I have not updated anything to my NBA stuff. I will probably be doing that Tuesday afternoon.
No, I dove right in, made sure that I had everything locked and ready to go. A lot of weird stuff shaping up too. Like I think Otto Porter might end up being the chalk play of the day, at least on FanDuel,
What
which
team is he on?
the Warriors.
That is not what I was going to guess.
Yeah. The game is not in Brooklyn, so I guess Kyrie will be allowed to play for that bad boy. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. And then we have the MPE on FanDuel now, which dramatically changed the roster construction.
Did we find out if it's gone from DraftKings or not?
I don't think that it is. It's
okay. I'll say because someone in chat yesterday said it wasn't. I can't remember who was DMing me that it was.
In fact, I can confirm that the salary file in my sheet for right now for Tuesday has multi-position.
Okay. Well, that's kind of disappointing. I mean, it's fine, but I was actually looking forward to not having it.
Well, let's dive in. Let's talk about this baseball slate. We're going to kick it off. 2:07 start time, White Sox and Astros, 4.3 run implied total for the White Sox, 4.2 for the Astros. Carlos Rodon and Lance McCullers. Rodon 8,100, McCullers 8,200. I've got McCullers by 1 fantasy point in this spot, but just talk me through it. How are you feeling about both of these guys for today?
I think that they're both appealing options because they are good enough that you don't really expect the Leafs to be that short, especially in the case of McCullers. He is, obviously one of the best options that Houston has. Rodon on the other side only threw 69 pitches last time out. That was September 29th. I'm not expecting him to go super deep into this game. So I would say between the two, McCullers is the more appealing to me. It's not like it's a good matchup for either one, but McCullers, I think, just is more likely if he's pitching well to go deeper. Threw 104 pitches in his first start in the series in 6 2/3 innings. So I do think that he's the better option of the two.
Yeah, I could really go either direction here. It's a tough spot. I think the Astros offense looks a little bit better. I'm anxious to see what that lineup ends up looking like in comparison to what I have in here. I assume it's going to be pretty close. You don't have to get too weird during the playoffs. These are your two pay up options as well. McCullers at 8,200 is the most expensive pitcher on DraftKings. He's 9,600 on FanDuel. That is the most expensive price tag on FanDuel. Rodon second on DK at 8,100. Eric Lauer is close at 7,900. Do you have any problem going to both guys at the same time?
No, not really. It's a 3-game playoff slate, and there's major question marks everywhere else, basically. We don't have confirmed starters for the Brewers or the Braves. We don't have a confirmed starter for the Dodgers. There's a decent chance that you're just going to get situations, especially with the Brewers and the Braves, where you're getting starters on extremely short leashes. Desclafani with the Giants, I assume, is going to be on a relatively short leash as well. So whereas, with Rodon, you certainly have question marks as far as how deep into the game is he going to be able to go? How effective is he going to be? We know he was dealing with injuries down the stretch, but it's a 3-game slate where a lot of these teams are just going to be saying, the moment this guy gets in trouble, we're getting him out. So I don't really have any issue going to either of these guys.
Do you have a preference when it comes to teams to stack here? Are you more likely to be going to the White Sox or the Astros?
More likely, I think, to go to the Astros, just because I think that Rodon's a pretty big question mark right now. He hasn't pitched in a couple of weeks. He didn't look particularly good when he did pitch to close out the season. In that final start against Cincinnati, he went 5 innings, only gave up the 1 hit, but 4 strikeouts, not what you're used to seeing from him. So I think that there's, a decent chance he's not at his best, and that this is sort of a situation where the White Sox are just, kind of hoping to catch lightning in a bottle and get, peak Carlos Rodon. But if they don't, you can see the Astros do a lot of damage in a hurry. So I do like that side of it a little bit more.
Just speaking in generalities, do you have a preference in game? I know we haven't gotten to Braves, Brewers, or Dodgers, Giants, but do you see this White Sox Astros game standing out differently in comparison to the other two?
No, I think they're all pretty similar. It's just, it's hard for one game to stand out in the postseason because you can't even necessarily look at it and say, oh, these starters are really good and the starters in the other game aren't, because it's not like the regular season where you need to save your bullpen for, because you have like 6 games this week or something. If, whoever's pitching for Atlanta, they're probably not as good as Lance McCullers. They're also getting yanked at the first sign of trouble, and then you're getting a bullpen game. So it's kind of reflected in the team totals here. Every team, with the exception of the Giants, has an implied run total right now between 4.1 and 4.5. So I think, it shows up there.
All right. So let's talk White Sox bats for now. Who are some of the bats that stand out most to you? Anybody whose prices look good? And if you have anybody that you think is likely to be pinch hit for, I think that'd be important information.
Yeah, so price wise, I think Moncada at 3,800 on DraftKings stands out. Jimenez at 3,700 is pretty nice as well. On the other side, we still have the broken Michael Brantley price at 3,500. It is a lefty-lefty matchup, but if you're going, like, especially if you're stacking Houston, you're kind of assuming, or you're hoping at least, that they're going to get to Carlos Rodon early, get him out of the game, and then you probably get the platoon advantage for Brantley. So I think at that price point, it makes him a pretty interesting tournament option. Bregman's pretty cheap. Alvarez is actually pretty cheap as well. As far as pinch hit risk goes, I don't have too much I'm concerned about in this game. I don't have their last game in front of me, but just looking at the lineup, it wouldn't be surprising if you get somebody pinch hitting for Gavin Sheets at some point. Yeah. But other than that, I mean, Anderson, Moncada, Robert, Abreu, Grandal, Jimenez, those guys are not going anywhere.
Let's see, pricing on the FanDuel side. Lurie Garcia, 2,200, second base shortstop eligibility. I think that's mildly interesting just given the price tag, but I don't know how much salary is going to matter as long as you don't have McCullers. I don't know if I asked you this yet. I'm going to do it again. Did you prefer the White Sox or Astros side of this game? I
prefer the Astros side because of what I think is a lot of variance in Carlos Rodon's health, ability, everything.
Well, let's touch on some of the Astros bats. If you had to roster just one, do you have a preference?
I mentioned Brantley's price being cheap, but I think Bregman's the first guy I would get to here. It does kind of suck that he's the same position as the most underpriced guy, in my opinion, on the White Sox as well. But Bregman at 4,400 in this spot, I think looks pretty good.
I was expecting to see slightly higher ownership numbers on some of these hitters. It looks like a lot of it is going to this Braves-Brewers game, which we're going to dive into. Do you think the White Sox and Astros bats in general are going a bit undervalued? Highest owned guy in this game is Bregman, but just 17% owned.
Yeah, it seems that way right now. Kind of, and this goes hand in hand with what you had asked about preferring one game to the others. This is a slate where if I'm playing tournaments, I really just care about the ownership, because I think the range of outcomes for most of these teams is very similar. You're not going to look at really any of these teams and say, oh, this is a great spot. I really think they're going to do well. You're more so just, trying to take advantage of variance in baseball. And so looking at ownership is going to be really, really important. And then when it's a team like Houston, that does have all of these really good hitters, or a team like the White Sox that has a lot of really good hitters, McCullers is really good, but he also does walk a lot of guys. I believe his last start was the first start of the season where he didn't walk anyone. He's someone, that certainly can get himself in trouble in a hurry at times. So just getting low owned White Sox and or Astros, even though I don't particularly like their matchups, is still going to be appealing on a 3-game tournament slate.
It really, I'm really surprised to see this ownership be as low. I don't know if that's just because of the lack of named starters. Like, we've got Rodon and McCullers and 80% owned as pitchers, but we're also missing 3 of the 6 pitchers for today. So it's not hyper useful at this current moment. But if this sort of holds, just taking your shot on a 3-gamer to go to more White Sox, more Astros, I think that's appealing. Do you change your stacking strategies on a slate of this size?
Well, I've just been playing cash, so yes. But typically when I'm playing smaller slates, like during the regular season, so on bigger slates, I pretty much just do 5-3 stacks, 5-2, and then some just 5. As the slates get smaller, I'll run more 4-4, 4-3, 3-2. On this slate, I'd certainly be fine playing some like 3-2, 3-3 type stacks.
Okay. And from a fantasy cruncher setting perspective, or just even like a hand build perspective, how many batters from the opposing team are you willing to run against your starting pitcher?
In tournaments, 1 or 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Cash, 3.
Can you underestimate postseason experience with starting pitchers? You apparently understand this. A certain unintelligent member of our YouTube community seems to think that you understand what postseason experience means.
Absolutely nothing.
Thank you. Helps me out there a little bit. All right, let's sum it up. I think we already did sum it up. We've hit favorite bats on the White Sox side. We've hit favorite bats on the Astros side. I think we kind of know where we want to be for this game. Anything that we should be paying attention to that maybe we haven't touched on yet?
I don't think so.
Yeah, this one seems pretty cut and dry. I'm really okay. So we have McCullers at 83% owned, Rodon at 75. Those numbers aren't going to hold. Are you expecting McCullers to be more owned than Rodon?
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, we have McCullers projected a couple of points higher. I haven't looked anywhere else, but in my mind, it makes sense for him to be projected higher. So I'm expecting him to be the higher owned.
Okay. That works. Well, that's all we got then. That'll do it for Houston and the White Sox, which means it's time to talk about the schedule for the rest of the day. Coming up immediately after this NFL strategy show, first look for week 6, Laffy, Ben, and Jordan breaking it all down. Not Jordan behind the virtual glass. He will be probably producing it for all I know. At 2 p.m., buckle up, everybody. NHL is back. NHL strategy show with Cliffy and Josh Harris. They are going to be touching on whatever is happening on the ice today. I have no concept of how many games there are, but the NHL is back. And then PGA strategy, 4 p.m. Jason and Eric talking. Oh, God, I don't even know where this event is. I feel really lost in other sports at this
I'm glad
current
that you took
moment.
the time to prep for this show. I've been up since 7 o'clock doing my due diligence, and you act like you just woke up and jumped on YouTube.
The CJ Cup is the current tournament for the PGA. Apologies for not remembering that it was the CJ Cup. Should have known that. So sorry for that, guys. Free content, though. If you are watching the show, and I assume that if you're listening to me, you are, MLB projections are free, as are PGA top golfers. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hungover is Adam? It's always nice when the answer is a 0.
Yeah,
all right.
Not drink anything yesterday.
Talking about my Braves taking on the Brewers, 4.5 run implied total for Atlanta, 4 for the Brew Crew. It's looking like Inoa and Lauer, although that is not official anywhere. Do you have any reason to suspect that those guys aren't the starters today?
No, but I don't really like it's the postseason. It's a 5-game series. I think it's reasonable to guess that they are. I don't think it would be surprising if they aren't. Teams can kind of just do whatever the hell they want at this point.
I assume like we're moving forward with these two guys as the assumption until we hear something differently, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Inoa 6,900 on DraftKings, 7,600 on FanDuel. Lauer 7,900 on DraftKings, $8,800 on FanDuel. Let's start here. How deep do you think both of these guys go into this game?
How early do they put 2 runners on base in the same inning?
Okay, that's fair. Do either one of these guys seem like they would be left out there to work through mistakes pretty regularly? Like, this is a lot different than the first game we talked about.
I don't think so. I think that the Brewers would be. I would just guess that the Brewers trust Eric Lauer more than the Braves trust Inoa. But the Brewers are also down 2-1, so You're not getting much trust here, I don't think.
All right. Well, then how do you feel about Inoa? 6,900. That is a nice price tag given what we've got going on today, given the implied total for the Brewers. Are you willing to go there to save some salary?
He's fine in tournaments. He gives you strikeout upside. We do know there are some strikeouts in Milwaukee's lineup. If he's pitching well, I assume you're getting 4 or 5 innings out of him before Atlanta turns it over to the bullpen. So at 6,900, there is still some upside there, especially in the context of a 3-game slate. I think it's just important to keep in mind the floor is basically non-existent. Not that there ever really is a floor in baseball, but even more so, you're just not, I wouldn't think, going to get any sort of leash on Inoa here if he doesn't come out hot.
On the opposite side for Lauer, 7,900 feels a little expensive for this spot. It seems like it's going to be easier to get to McCullers and Rodon. Do you have a preference between those 3 guys at the top?
McCullers is my preference. I think Rodon would be second just because when he's on, he is the better pitcher than Lauer. But assuming, and we don't have it since he's not confirmed, we don't have ownership on Lauer yet. I think it's likely that you get McCullers as the most popular pitcher, followed by Rodon, followed by like pretty big gap potentially to Lauer. So in tournaments, it's still a spot where it would make some sense if he's really low owned. But I think he is the third option there just based on the combination of not as good a strikeout pitcher as the other 2. And then also I'd expect him to be pulled pretty quickly. Someone mentioned in chat that they did burn Adrian Hauser yesterday. He threw 22 pitches. It's an elimination game. I think you probably can just bring him back anyway. But either way, I still think that it's pretty likely, if they get in trouble. I mean, you can see Josh Hader used as I think we've even, and I could be wrong, I think we've even seen that in the past in previous Milwaukee series where, Hader is typically a end of game guy, but it's the postseason. If Lauer loads the bases or puts, second and third with 1 out in the 3rd inning, there's no real reason you don't bring Josh Hader in at that point and say, okay, get out of this inning and then we'll figure out the rest. I don't think the fact that Hauser pitched yesterday is likely to give Eric Lauer much a longer leash here in an elimination game.
Anything else for Enoa or Lauer?
Nope.
All right. Well, let's talk Braves bats to start. I'd like to think this is the better offense. They are pulling a pretty healthy amount of ownership, although the Brewers are actually getting the most ownership that I can see right now, 25% in aggregate, in fact. But let's start with Atlanta. What stands out most to you?
Just the amount of power in this lineup. Eric Lauer's been solid this year, but he has allowed a 172 expected ISO to righties. 25.8% strikeout percentage is pretty good, but a $3,900 price tag on Jorge Soler seems very, very cheap. Duvall, Riley are reasonably priced as well. The only guys in this lineup at 5K are Freeman and Albies, and obviously those guys deserve their price. So I think Atlanta looks good here just because Lauer is fine, but not an ace by any stretch. And then also this is, I had mentioned talking about Lauer that I didn't think the recent bullpen usage of Milwaukee would lengthen his leash. It does make it a little bit more likely though that whoever comes in is just less effective. If the freshest guy in your bullpen is Aaron Ashby, who is a really good prospect, but doesn't have much time at the major league level, there's certainly a lot of volatility there. If you're asking Adrian Hauser to pitch again, they certainly could, but this is someone that was a starting pitcher all season long. He's not used to going out there 2 games in a row. It's a different routine for him. You saw it yesterday in the game with Tampa Bay with McClanahan being used out of the bullpen. Not saying that's the only reason he got lit up, but guys being in a different routine in the postseason can have negative effects. Not saying that it necessarily will, but it does at least make the range of outcomes a little bit wider. So the fact that Milwaukee's bullpen is at least a little bit overworked right now, and you're going to have to probably put some guys in positions they're not used to, I think at least makes the ceiling a little bit higher, or the chances of Atlanta having a ceiling game against the bullpen a little bit higher than they normally would be.
I like that price tag on Travis d'Arnaud at 3,400. Seems like a decent spot to try to buy a home run. Only 2,200 on FanDuel, but obviously the catcher spot is a little bit different here.
Cantor had said that he'd agree on Hader coming in early if Williams hadn't broke his hand. Yeah, obviously it would make it easier for Counsell to do. But either way, if this is like a 2-0 Braves game and there's 2 guys on base, it would be a huge mistake for Craig Counsell to be saving Josh Hader for the save. Like, you bring him in and then have anyone else pitch at the end of the game.
How about on the Brewers side? This is the team that appears to be pretty chalky, pulling a ton of ownership, easy to get to, multiple, 3K, sub 3K bats. Are you liking the Brewers here as much as the ownership is showing? Are you liking the Brewers more than the Braves?
No, I mean, if the ownership's going to be there, I'm perfectly fine going the other way. They have the lowest implied run total on the slate right now, except for the Giants. The pricing is fair, but this is also a slate where nobody's really that expensive. I mean, we talked about Houston and the White Sox. They are priced down because they have tough matchups. There's nobody in that game at $5,000 or more on DraftKings. The only hitters in this game, the Milwaukee-Atlanta game, are Freeman and Albies at 5K. So, and the most expensive pitcher on the slate right now is $8,200 McCullers. So there's not, the savings going from like 4,300 to 3,700 isn't going to be that big of a deal on this slate, I don't think, since there's not that much to pay up for. I think that it's an okay spot against Enoa, but at the same time, if he's pitching poorly, I don't think he's in the game very long. It's going to turn into a bullpen game, and we know that those aren't that appealing. So I'm not saying that I don't like Milwaukee. I think they're still very, very comparable to all of these other offenses. But if they are going to pick up more ownership just because they're a little bit cheaper, I'm perfectly fine going to these other teams first.
Are you surprised to see them more owned than the Braves?
Yes.
Yeah,
just because, again, it kind of surprises me. Like, I wouldn't be, if this were a slate where, you had Scherzer and, I don't know, Webb or something, and they were both like 10-5, it wouldn't surprise me, just because they do have a similar chance of success and they're cheaper. But here, I just don't really know exactly where those savings are being used that really makes your lineup better.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to be that hard to put together whatever lineup you really want to put together.
Right.
Salary doesn't seem to matter all that much to me on the surface. Maybe that's not totally the case as construction starts happening, but for right now, it feels like getting to the team with the highest implied total should be relatively easy, and somehow their opponent is getting more love.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, like, I think the Brewers are still a good option. It's not like this isn't, the Texas Rangers pulling ownership because they're really cheap during the regular season. This is still a pretty high upside offense. It's just, you could pretty much you could ask me any offense on this slate, and if you tell me that they're pulling 25% ownership, I'm going to say, okay, well, I like these other offenses more. Milwaukee just happens to be the one getting the most right now because they are really cheap. You don't have anyone in this lineup outside of Avisail Garcia and Eduardo Escobar more than $4,100.
Favorite bat in this game?
In the game, Soler.
All right, we'll touch on something else in a little bit. Yeah, the Soler price tag and being in the leadoff spot, it stands out most to me as well.
$3,400 d'Arnaud is clearly a good catcher option as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to try to buy a cheap home run, a $2,800 Rowdy Tellez first base option doesn't sound too shabby for Milwaukee either.
No. That
I don't have any.
The other day was absolutely crushed off the
screen. Yeah. I don't have anything else for Atlanta and Milwaukee.
Nope, me neither.
All right, we got a couple things that we want to touch on first. First one is promo code CROSSCHECK, CROSSCHECK, one big word. You can get an Awesemo Plus NHL package for just $3 using this promo code. Gives you access to everything we have for NHL DFS, projections, ownership, top stacks, lineup builder, premium Slack, which may not be premium Slack for much longer. I'm going to be making a migration soon enough. Click the link in the description of this video if you want to activate it, or look for Nightbot as well. This offer is good through October 18th. Stop guessing, start winning, join Awesemo Plus today. And then we got to talk about our presenting sponsor of the show. That would be Jock Market. They've turned fantasy sports into a stock exchange. You can make money every minute, second, hour of every single slate that you're on. You buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money. So you can buy shares in their pre-game IPO phase and sell them immediately if you would like, or hold all the way till the end of the game, hoping for your best return. Download the app in the App Store today to get started. There's markets for the NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, PGA. First market guarantee. So if a new user doesn't profit in their first NFL cash market that they enter, they are refunded up to $100. That's a really nice deal coming out of Jock Market. You can check out the free Jock Market IPO projections that we have to help you beat the market. So thank you to Jock Market for being the presenting sponsor. Let's see here. We're on to game number 3, Dodgers and Giants. It's allegedly Tony Gonsolin and almost assuredly Anthony Desclafani right now. What are your thoughts on whether or not it's Gonsolin?
So I was just saying in chat, I wouldn't be shocked if it actually is Gonsolin and that Dave Roberts is basically saying, I'm going to try and get lucky and have, a good 3 or 4 innings from Gonsolin, make this a bullpen game, and then, have Walker Buehler for game 5 with the idea that at the first sign of trouble, Walker Buehler comes in from the bullpen. But I also wouldn't be surprised at all if they just go to Buehler on short rest. And then the plan for game 5 would be probably Urias plus everybody else.
Yeah.
So like either one I think is reasonable. But yeah, wouldn't be surprised at all if you get Buehler here. Wouldn't be shocked if you get Gonsolin on an extremely, extremely short leash.
Right. Do you find it viable to even start? Like, let's say that we do know that we're getting Gonsolin. How do you feel about him at 7,500?
About Gonsolin?
Yeah.
I wouldn't touch him, I don't think.
Okay.
I would think Gonsolin, between Gonsolin and whoever starts for Atlanta, I would think have the shortest leashes on the slate.
All right. Yeah, 8,300 for Gonsolin on FanDuel is really difficult to get to. 7,500 on DraftKings. You got to know that he's the starter. I guess we should figure out how much Walker Buehler is.
8,500 on DraftKings.
Okay. How do you feel about Walker Buehler if he somehow gets the nod for the Dodgers?
If he gets the start, play him. Like, I think he's ahead of Rodon. I think he's at least neck and neck with McCullers, if not ahead. Like he's on short rest would be the concern, but you're clearly getting a discount for that as well at 8,500. So Buehler, I think, would pretty quickly jump to the top. The Giants right now have a 3.6 implied run total, pretty clearly the lowest on the slate. So I think Buehler would look really good. What I think is interesting is if Gonsolin starts, I think there's actually still, in larger field tournaments, especially if you're playing a lot of lineups, I think there's some merit to still rolling the dice on Walker Buehler, thinking that if Gonsolin gets in trouble in the first inning or something, Buehler comes in and gives you 4 or 5 innings and ends up, just it's there's a decent chance that McCullers and Rodon give you very mediocre games here. So if you somehow get 4 innings of Buehler, he could still beat those guys at extremely low ownership if he doesn't start. So clearly, if Gonsolin's starting, it makes Buehler extremely risky. But I don't hate that idea, at no ownership in tournaments.
How are you feeling about the opposite side of this game? Anthony DeSclafani taking on this Dodgers lineup.
I don't feel great about it. The Dodgers obviously are really, really good. DeSclafani, he is a good pitcher. He is only 7,600. I'd be more interested if that got us anything. Again, I don't think the savings are that important. Right now, we have him projected for 42% ownership, but again, we're missing 3 pitchers, so that doesn't mean a whole lot. I think directionally it'll be accurate. Like he'll be lower owned than McCullers and Rodon. I feel pretty confident in that. So he's okay in tournaments, just in the sense of it's a 3-game slate. So obviously he's fine, but I wouldn't expect him to go too deep into this game. I expect it to be a situation where if he gets you 5 innings, the Giants are probably pretty happy with that, get him out as soon as he's about to come up to hit again. And, that's fine for his salary, but not a play I feel very strongly about.
So you're going to just have a lot of McCullers Rodon, huh?
It really depends on the Dodgers situation.
Assuming it's Gonsolin.
Then yeah, probably. But
okay.
I mean, it depends on the ownership too. Like it's tough right now since we don't have half the pitchers on the slate. Right now with the 3 pitchers that are confirmed, we have 83% ownership going to McCullers, Rodon at 75%. If somehow those were to hold, then yeah, sure, I'll take some Inoa and some Lauer and some DeSclafani. But sure. Assuming those come down, then yeah, I'm still going to like them.
Well, then let's talk a little bit about what I assume is your preferred stacking option, and that would be the Dodgers offense. Unless, correct me if I'm wrong, would you rather be going to the Giants?
No, I would definitely rather be going to the Dodgers.
All right. Hit me up with whoever you like for LA today.
All of them. They are the most expensive offense. You have 4 guys at the top, Betts, Seager, and both Turners, that are at least $5K, Will Smith at 5,700. So maybe a little bit more difficult to get to, but I still just think that you don't need to necessarily full stack them. You do probably have Matt Beatty you can use for value. Bellinger's cheap, broken, but cheap. So I still think they'll be easy enough to get to. It's just another situation where, if they were getting the most ownership, I wouldn't feel that strongly about them, where I would still want to get to them a lot. I would gladly just go to other teams. But right now we have them projected for only the 3rd most ownership. All of these teams, I think, are pretty, with the exception of the Giants, I guess, are pretty comparable in terms of top stack percentage. And you're getting, just a lot of really good hitters on the Dodgers.
I don't even know who to single out other than the fact that Beatty's 2,400 and not owned, which is surprising, but also,
I mean, Trey Turner, I think,
out there.
Trey Turner probably ends up being the most useful just because he's a second baseman. You have the Colton Wong value piece at second base, but that's just typically a pretty tough position to fill out. So I think Turner usually jumps out.
Yeah, this whole Dodgers side looks really good. On the Giants side, they are pulling some ownership. They're not all that different than the Dodgers. 15% aggregate I have right now for San Francisco, 17 for the Dodgers. So it might as well be the same. Does anything stand out to you for San Francisco? How much does this change, whether it's Gonsolin or Buehler? I assume it's a lot.
It really doesn't, I don't think.
Really? Okay.
Because if let's say Gonsolin starts, there's 2 ways that game goes. Well, 3 ways. If Gonsolin pitches well, maybe he goes 4 innings, but he's pitching well. So that's kind of 4 innings that you're writing off for the Giants. And then you're getting a bullpen game, and they didn't pitch. They didn't have to do anything last night. You got 14 pitches from Jansen in the 9th. You got 15 from Trinan in the 8th. That was it. They were off the day before. So you're getting a rested Dodgers bullpen. If Gonsolin gets in trouble, you're either getting Walker Buehler out of the bullpen or you're getting a rested Dodgers bullpen. So, just a fresh bullpen game. To me, it's just a wholly unappealing spot regardless. I actually kind of think, and this isn't really actionable for DFS, I don't think, but I almost think that the ceiling is higher if Buehler starts, just because he's on short rest and there's some chance that he just doesn't have it. And you could get, just kind of, the Shane McClanahan experience from yesterday where it's, 5 runs real quick before you can even do anything about it. There's certainly the chance for that to happen, whereas I think that's a lot less likely with Gonsolin and a bullpen game. I think, and I don't think it's highly likely with Bueller either. It's just like, I think if he starts, there's at least a little bit more uncertainty of what you're getting compared to, we've seen Gonsolin do this all season long. We've seen these arms in the bullpen all season long. So I think there's at least a little bit more uncertainty, which leads to, just more volatility for the offense if Bueller starts.
Who all standing out to you on the Giants side of this game?
Nobody. Nobody. The hitters are good, so that kind of goes without saying. But in terms of liking the matchup or whatever, there's not really much here. Wilmer Flores is 2,700. I guess that's a pretty good price tag, but doesn't seem that useful. Crawford's been really good this year. Wade's been good and he's cheap, but it's not a spot that I like.
Yeah, I mean, look, the implied total is telling the story here. The Giants are significantly lower than the other 5 teams on this slate. That's something to pay close attention to. Who's your favorite bat in this game? Trey Turner?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't have anything else really individually. This is obviously very difficult for us right now. We don't have enough data just for this slate in general. We're still waiting on, we do have a White Sox lineup. We don't have an Astros lineup. We don't have multiple starters at this point. It's going to be pretty important. So let's try to just sum it up. If Locke were in a minute, who is your expected top stack for today?
Probably Houston.
I think mine's Atlanta.
I mean, right now we just have them with twice the ownership of Houston and the same chances of success.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good point. And they're a better lineup too, and it's probably not even close.
I mean, I think it's pretty close, but
I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this Braves team.
I love this Braves team.
It's kind of weird. Really missing really missing a key bat, that's for sure. And I think that makes it look a little bit worse. So yes, Acuna obviously would help a little bit. I don't like pitcher Heredia. I don't know what to make out of Duvall, Darno, and Swanson. They're all something.
I think there's a decent chance Heredia is just Jock anyway. Even though it's
fair.
Even if it is a lefty, like
that's fair. That's fair. And then expected pitching combo is McCullers, Rodon. Seems like no matter what's going to happen, they are the 2 easiest guys to get to, given the fact that they're only 8,200 and 8,100.
Well, if Bueller starts, I think he jumps ahead of Rodon at the very least.
Okay. And you said 8,500, correct?
Yeah.
All righty. Anything else that we should be paying attention to throughout the day? Is there any sort of like roster construction stuff you would be doing, given the fact that these games are so spread out?
I think if you're, especially in cash games, if you're on the fence between 2 guys, it probably makes sense to just go with the later game. But at the same time, I mean, you have a general idea of who's going to play. Like the guys that are up in the air typically aren't ones you're going to be using in cash games anyway. The one spot, I guess, you could kind of run into issues, and it would be a reason maybe. So when we talked about the pitching, I said that it's difficult right now because we don't have full ownership, but that if McCullers and Rodon were projected for as much ownership later on as they are right now, then I'd be fine moving away from them. One other argument you could make for moving away from them potentially is that is the first game at 2:07. It starts 7 hours before the Dodgers game. There's a pretty good chance that you have to make a decision on those 2 before we have a Dodgers pitcher. So if that happens, it means that if Walker Buehler gets the start, he's going to be very low owned because so many people are already locked into Rodon and McCullers. I think that in tournaments, kind of just taking a chance and saying, okay, the worst case is you get Gonsolin starting and you end up having to use like whoever starts for the Brewers or the Braves or Desclafani or whatever, instead of McCullers or Rodon. That's not ideal, but it's fine. They're still going to win a decent percentage of the time. But the upside is that you potentially just get a much lower own than he otherwise would be, Walker Buehler.
What time would you want Walker Buehler news to come in?
If I'm trying to make my life easy right now, as far as making money, like 5 o'clock.
Okay. You wouldn't want that news at like 12:02 or 2:02.
I mean, I guess that would work. I would probably prefer it just after everyone is locked, Rodon and McCullers. But yeah, 202 would work fine too. Like not that many people are changing at that point.
That's what I mean. Like something where you're going to get to more Bueller and people aren't going to have enough time to get away from McCullers / Rodon.
But I mean, to be fair, if I'm 150 maxing a tournament, we get that news at 202. I'm not going to have time either.
Well, 202 is just a bad example then. So somewhere in and around close to the lock of the first game. But it doesn't matter. I don't have anything else here. Do you have anything to add? Do you have anything coming out today for this slate?
Yeah, I'm supposed to have a deep dive article that I'm not entirely sure how to write right now since we don't have pitching.
Well, that should be a thrilling read based on that information. Thank you to Jock Market for being the presenting sponsor of the show. Adam, thank you for joining everyone here. It's tricky right now, guys. Keep your eyes peeled. Make sure if you are a premium make sure if you're a premium sub, you're stopping into our Slack chat for updates, for news. Make sure you're following at Awesemo MLB. Also will help you get a little bit of this news. Good luck tonight, everybody. No, what do we got, Adam? Go ahead.
We just got an update. Tony La Russa said Lucas Giolito is available out of the bullpen.
Okay. Does that change anything for you?
No, it just kind of reiterates what we were saying about the Braves and the Dodgers and the White Sox. Like the Brewers, the Dodgers, the White Sox. Like it's just gonna be all hands on deck for these guys. They're gonna do what they have to do to advance to Game 5.
There we go, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
It does make me think. I already thought Rodon probably had a short leash. Having Giolito behind him makes me think he definitely has a short leash.
I'm going to try to exit the show, but I assume Adam has one additional thought to give us. Nothing. We're good. Good luck tonight, everybody. Enjoy yourselves. Play some baseball. Basketball's coming. That's all that matters.